that's so sweet, and there's the Rebbe that's a general, that's a teveya, that demands. And of course, we all remember, we know that the Rebbe screamed about Moshiach. So I heard once, I obviously was not there, but I heard that there was Rebbetzin Chayamushka was sitting in the house on President Street, and there was a Fabrengen that was going on live, and the Rebbetzin was listening to the Fabrengen, and the Rebbe was particularly upset about the fact that Moshiach isn't here. Particularly upset about the fact that Moshiach isn't here. And he was being quite emotionally expressive about that. Now, I don't know what sikha it was, I don't know what the occasion was, but the Rebbe was talking about Moshiach. The Rebbe talked about Moshiach a lot. So the Rebbetzin commented to whoever was sitting with her that my man meant as Allah will Moshiach azefil v'yerkel. My husband thinks that everybody wants Moshiach as much as I want Moshiach. She was commenting about the intensity of the Rebbe's emotion and saying, my husband thinks everybody wants Moshiach as much as he wants Moshiach. And this is a message. The message is that the Rebbe wanted that we should want Moshiach. This is a very, very serious and real message. The Rebbe wanted that we should want Moshiach. And as the Rebbe said many times, not want Moshiach because he wants Moshiach, want Moshiach because we want Moshiach. And if I may add, not just want Moshiach because there's tzadus in the world, and there is no shortage of that, but want Moshiach because Moshiach is right. Want Moshiach because Moshiach is right. The Rebbe wanted to inspire in us that we should want Moshiach. And all the emotion, all the intensity, all the passion was the Rebbe trying to wake us up to the idea that it's important that we should want Moshiach. And I'm going to share a couple of thoughts in this vein. Some of what I'm going to say is personal opinion, okay? You don't have to agree. Nobody has to agree with anything I say. Just don't throw any rocks at me, please. For 10 years that I was speaking about Moshiach, I would say that the Rebbe started talking about Moshiach incessantly in the early 80s. My hergish is that it started in 1982, Membeis, when the new Hayom Yom came out, and the Rebbe wrote that the abbreviation for Toshin Membeis was Teheshnas Bias Mashiach. The Rebbe talked about Mashiach for years. And there were all kinds of conversations about Mashiach, And I grew up with this, right? I was a teenager during the 80s, and then I was a young man during the 80s. And the Rebbe must have screamed about Mashiach 100 times. I'm going to say 100 times. I don't mean he spent 2 minutes at the end of the sikha. I mean the Rebbe carrying on for an hour about Mashiach. In that decade, the Rebbe spoke many, many sikhas, very passionate and pointed sikhas about Mashiach. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but this is how I remember it. When the Rebbe used to speak these emotional sikhas about Mashiach, those of us who were at the Fabrengen were smiling. We were entertained. Now the Rebbe is screaming, why are you laughing? Why do you think it's funny? And the answer was, this is how I remember it. Now if somebody remembers it differently, Gesundheit, hey, you're welcome to share with me your disagreement, but this is how I remember it. Because in our minds, when the Rebbe talked about Mashiach, all of those sikhas, he wasn't talking to us. He was talking to the Eibishter. The Rebbe cried about Mashiach and screamed about Mashiach and prosted about Mashiach and screamed about Mashiach. In our minds, all of the talks that the Rebbe gave about Mashiach were conversations between him and God. And I think the Rebbe tried very hard to impress upon us that he meant us. That he wasn't talking to the Eibishter, that he was talking to us. And what he was saying to us is, Mashiach comes when we want him. Mashiach comes when we demand him. Mashiach comes when we ask for him. And I'm going to remind you of something. The Rebbe made a campaign. It was the beginning of Cheshvan, in I think Mem Zayin. I may have the years wrong, but I think it was Mem Zayin, which is 86 to 87. The Rebbe made a campaign. And I'll tell you the story of that campaign. Maybe some of you remember it. The Rebbe, by Fabreng, told a story. And I remember the Fabreng distinctly. I don't know why, but I remember it very, very distinctly. The Rebbe told a story. He said, I got a letter from a woman who received a chain letter. A chain, you know what a chain letter is? It's a pyramid, right? Where you You send $1 to the name of the person on top of the list, and you cross their name off. Then you add your name to the bottom of the list, and you send it to 10 people. And if you have 4 names on the list, and it's 4 generations, you give $1 to Pliny Ben Pliny, and you can get back $10,000. It's a scheme. What they call it, a Ponzi scheme. It's unsustainable. It can't work, but people have been doing it forever. So when people send out a chain letter, the key to the chain letter is that the chain should not be broken, that every person who gets the letter should send the letter to 10 people. Otherwise, if the chain breaks down, you can send somebody $1 and not get back 10 cents. So the chain letters, if you've ever seen them, I have seen them, come with many threats. On the bottom of the page, there's a threat. And the threat says, tell stories. It's 1955, some guy broke the chain, and he was walking in the forest, and hit by lightning. Another 1971, someone got a letter, and he broke the chain. And they try to scare you into not breaking the chain. So this woman, an old lady, got such a letter, and she panicked. They're telling her to send $1 to a stranger, and then to put her name on the bottom of a piece of paper and send it to 10 people, and that if she breaks the chain, I see her. So she wrote the Rebbe a letter. And she asked the Rebbe what to do. She's afraid. She got this letter. What should I do? So the Rebbe said, by Fabring, and the Rebbe told the story like as if there was nothing else in the world going on, with so much patience. The Rebbe said, the first thing is, I think the Rebbe said Mistkasten, which is Yiddish for garbage can. I think the Rebbe used that word. I told her to throw it in the garbage, but I may be wrong. It's a long time ago. The Rebbe said, then I said to this lady that she should forget about it, and she shouldn't worry about it, that she shouldn't think about it, that there's nothing to be afraid of, and it's all garnish mit nicht. That was the story that Rebbe told me from Rebbe. But he explained what a chain letter is, and explained that this woman was afraid, and explained how he had to talk this lady down from her fear. And then the Rebbe continued. And he said, the Rebbe said, I asked myself a question that Hashem Tov said that from everything that a Jew sees or hears, he has to learn a lesson in Avodas Hashem. But this is a Torah from the Baal Shem Tov that the Rebbe said hundreds of times, possibly thousands of times. One of the most frequently quoted thoughts that the Rebbe repeated in almost every Fabrengen was that the Baal Shem Tov said, for everything a Jew sees or hears, he has to learn a lesson in Avodas Hashem. So the Rebbe said, why did this come to me? Why was it brought to my attention? This woman had a fear. She chose to consult me. And I was able to help her, so to speak. I mean, the Rebbe didn't say it in that many words, but that was the spirit of his words. Well, what's the lesson in it for me? The Rebbe said, the lesson that I learned is that I have to create a chain letter. But a chain letter, I remember the Rebbe saying, on kain abchodim, you're not going to threaten anybody, you're not going to frighten anybody. The letter is going to be written in a very positive spirit, and the tone is going to be to ask people to do it out of the goodness of their hearts without any threats and so on. And the Rebbe proposed to make a chain letter. What was the substance? What was the content of the chain letter the Rebbe proposed? The Rebbe quoted several Sfarim, and then later on it became more Sfarim, but the Rebbe quoted several Sfarim who say very plainly that Moshiach is not going to come till we demand him. Moshiach is not going to come till we ask for him. One of them is a Radak. One of them is a Radak from the Rishonim, the Radak in Sefer Daniel, and I believe it says the Lashon Haftzara. Moshiach is not going to come until we insist, until we demand. The Rebbe asked every one of us to compile a letter in quoting these sources, that the coming of Moshiach depends on us demanding Moshiach, and to send it to 10 people, and to ask each one of those 10 people to send it to a further 10 people, and ask them to create a chain that should not be broken. This was in 1987, Tafshin Mem Zayin. And when you think about that today, when you think about it in hindsight, it's very obvious that the Rebbe was saying that it's incumbent upon each one of us, it's a requirement, it's a necessity, it's an obligation to want Mashiach. And that Mashiach's coming depends on our desiring him. Now, I remember that story. I was in yeshiva in California at the time. We were shluchim. We wrote chain letters, sent them to people. But frankly, we didn't think too much about it. Honestly, we didn't think too much about it. Today, I think about it. I think about it so much. Which leads me to a point, which I think is a very, very important point. I think it's a very, very important point. That point is that all of us who are old enough, and even those of us who are young, but certainly those of us who were grown-ups in 1991, and they remembered the Sikh of Chav Ches Nisan. Sikh that the Rebbe said on Thursday night after he came from the oil, the whole Sikh was a few minutes, where the Rebbe said, I did everything I could to bring Moshiach, and the Rebbe used very strong words about the fact that he didn't succeed, and now I'm giving it over to each one of you, and to see to bring Moshiach and so on. We all remember that Sikh. I remember that Sikh. You can't forget that Sikh. I think Lubavitch, the Sikh is 29 years ago, 29 years ago. It's a long, long time ago, 29 years ago. I think Lubavitch, to this day, hasn't recovered from that Sikh. There's a PTSD, there's a traumatic stress. The words and the tone that the Rebbe used in that Sikh is so strong, and in our minds, so negative, and if I may add a word, filled with despair, with Yush, which is so uncharacteristic of the Rebbe that we don't know how to eat the Sikh. We don't know what to do with it. We don't know where to put it. I think it changed us. It changed us forever. And we certainly don't know how to understand this Sikh. So I want to make a simple suggestion. I want to make a very simple suggestion. We think back to the Sikh of Chav Ches Nisan, and what we hear, what we see, what we remember is the Rebbe's frustration. I have a proposal. I don't know if I'm right. Obviously, I don't know if I'm right, but I have a simple proposal. Perhaps we should look at the Sikh of Chav Ches Nisan a little differently. The Rebbe wants Moshiach. Inside the Rebbe's heart, there's a desire for Moshiach. You know and I know, we all understand that the Rebbe's desire for Moshiach is so strong, it's unbelievable. It's a drive that's impossible to quantize. You can't measure how powerful is the Rebbe's desire and urge for Moshiach. Yeah, but you don't always see it, right? You don't always see it. For 3 minutes, the Rebbe decided to show us what it feels like to want Moshiach. In other words, instead of looking at the Sikh of Chav Ches Nisan the way we did, that it's sort of a resignation, it's a despair, it's a frustration, there's another way to look at it. For a few minutes, I mean, I hate to use this word, but I mean it. It was a gilui. For 3 minutes, the Rebbe showed us how he feels, every minute of the day. For 3 minutes, the Rebbe allowed us to see what wanting Moshiach feels like. And the reason the Rebbe, and then it went, the mask went back on, right? And then you didn't see it anymore. If you remember, after Chav Ches Nisan, the Rebbe's mood went back. That everything changed in Lubavitch after that. But the frustration, the feeling of despair, you didn't see it again. The Rebbe wanted us to see how it feels to desire Mashiach. It's just an interpretation. It's an opinion. Why? Because the wanting Mashiach, demanding Mashiach is a chayvras gaber. It's on us. As the Rebbe said, Mashiach's coming depends on us wanting and desiring Mashiach. And this need, this obligation to want Mashiach is one of the Rebbe's continuous news. You know, every Lubavitcher knows, even if you look at a picture of the Rebbe, what happens, you feel that guilt. I'm not doing enough. You remember your moments in the Rebbe's Daled Amos. So for some people, those moments are remembered nostalgically with warmth, and they're incredibly warm. Moments with the Rebbe were delicious. But you can't escape that the Rebbe's whole Metzius demanded something. And one of the things that the Rebbe demanded is that we need to want Mashiach Tzedakenu. That it's a chayvus gaber. It's incumbent upon us that we should want Mashiach. Now, I don't want to talk forever. I don't want to put you to sleep. I want to explain Mashiach. I want to explain what Mashiach means. Of course, it's not my own explanation. It's not that I mind giving explanations, and I'm just not smart enough to make them up. This is the Rebbe's sichos. based, of course, on the Rambam. I want to explain to you how the Rebbe sees, based on Rambam, what Moshiach means. And, so to speak, let that be an insight into what we want. If we're Jews, and we're from Jews, and we're Hasidic Jews, and we say, or we think, the whole Jewish world, except for Lubavitch, says every day Yigdal, and says every day Ani Maimin. Before davening, they say Yigdal, and after davening, they say Ani Maimin, and they say the 13 principles of faith. Lubavitch has got to be different. It's just one of those things. The Arizal's Talmud of Chaim Vital writes that Arizal told him that these tefillahs should not be said because they were not written al pi Kabbalah. Not that the Rambam didn't write al pi Kabbalah, but whoever wrote this rhyme, Yigdal is a poem, and this prose, Ani Maimin is prose, was not a makubal, and they're not al pi Chochmas Emes, and we should not say them. But the Rebbe said many times, maybe we don't say the 13 principles of faith, but we certainly think them. We meditate on the Yud Gimel Ikrei HaEmunah. And of course, one of them is Ani Maimin B'Emunah Shleima B'Bias HaMashiach. So what is it that we desire? What is Mashiach's kingdom? I'm going to share with you a very simple thought. It's a commonsensical thought, but it's a perspective that you have to get into your head, and then you have to actually figure out that you want this, okay? It's very simple. I'm going to ask the dumbest question in the universe, okay? And forgive me, I'm a teacher. Teachers ask dumb questions. And students also do, but teachers often ask dumb questions, okay? Is the Eibishter the Balabas of the world or not? Is this world God's or not? Simple question. Is the Eibishter the Balabas or not? Is this world his or not? Now, the answer, of course, is yes, he's the Balabas of the world. So the next question becomes, how come it doesn't look that way? If he's the Balabayas of the world, where's his Balabayas? If he owns the world, if he owns the earth, if everything that happens here is according to his will, where is that will? And I mean it very simply. The Eibishter gave Yidden 613 mitzvahs. The Eibishter gave Goyim Lahavdil 7 mitzvahs. Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach. And of course, as you know, the 7 mitzvahs of Noach are not only 7 mitzvahs, there are 7 basic mitzvahs that encompass, in the book Encyclopedia Talmudis, he lists scores of mitzvahs, dozens of mitzvahs that Goyim have. Goyim have many more than 7. 7 are just generalities or negative mitzvahs. There's many mitzvahs that Goyim have, like tzedakah and bikechelim and halvayas hameis and kibbut aveim and all kinds of other things that are not machavere. If this is God's world, we should do what God wants. How could it be that this is the Eibishter's world and the world behaves in a way which is not consistent with the will of HaKadosh Baruch? And it's a real question. It's an emunah question. Is he in charge? He's not. If he's in charge, how can we not say so? Rabbi Yossi, that's what Mashiach is. That's what the ganze meise. You know what Mashiach means? That this world runs according to Hashem's wishes. Hashem gave us a mitzvah, we do it. Hashem taught people how a civilization has to look, how a society has to look, how we behave as individuals, and as members of families, as members of communities, and as members of neighborhoods, and as members of cities, and members of states, and members of countries, and human beings in the face of the Eibishter's good earth. How a human being behaves. Mashiach simply means that people do what he says. They're punished. That's Mashiach. In other words, we always talk about the miracles of Mashiach and the blessings of Mashiach. That's true. But that's not the inyan of Mashiach. Those are byproducts. The inyan of Mashiach is a simple thing. If this world is God's, why doesn't it appear that way? Mashiach makes this world look like God. And I want you to think about this. I want you to think about this. Mashiach is a person. Mashiach is a ben adam. He's a human being. He's a man. One man who makes this happen. Mashiach is a human being who has so much koyach. He's so powerful. He's so great. He's so holy. He's so wise. He's so I don't know what. But he pashut gets the whole world, Yidden and Lahavdil Goyim, to live the way Hashem wants human beings to live. The Rebbe has a sikh in Likutei Sichos, where the Rebbe says that according to this opinion, some opinions, Mashiach is not connected to any miracle. Mashiach could come and there wouldn't be a single miracle. Other than, with the wording of the Rambam, Shibud Malchias, that everybody lives as the Eibishter says to live. Yidden follow their Tayag mitzvahs. Goyim lahavdil keep their Sheva mitzvahs. And the Rebbe says in that Sikha, could you imagine what kind of a miracle it must be for the world to change so much without a single miracle occurring? What kind of ness it is that the whole world lives as the Eibishter wants people to live without a ness. That's Moshiach. Moshiach is a person who teaches the world to live according to the Ras Hashem, and they follow him. You know, like I said, I'm a teacher by profession. Teachers ask stupid questions, and teachers also repeat themselves over and over and over again. So I ask my students again and again and again and again, when you learn the Rambam about Mashiach, what is the key word? What's the most important word? In chapter 11 of Hilchas Malachim u'Melchamis and Melech HaMashiach, where the Rebbe talks about where the Ram talks about the person Mashiach. Chapter 12 talks about the Yemois HaMashiach, the times of Mashiach. But chapter 11 talks about the personality, the individual man, individual human being who is Mashiach. I ask my students, what's the most important word in that entire chapter? Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands or to call out. Let's not get into any trouble here. The answer is the word Matzliach. What sets Mashiach apart from all the other Gedolei Yisrael who came before him is only one thing, that he does it. Every Gadol Yisrael, every Rebbe, every Nasi has the same task, to make people on earth live according to the Ras Eibishter. Mashiach succeeds. And Api Torah, and Api Musad, and Api Chassidus, Mashiach is coming. And Iman B'munah Shleima means that this person, Yamed Melech Beis David, Hege B'Teire, Ve'esek B'Mitzvahs, Kedavid David, V'Teresh B'Ksav, Teresh B'Alpeh, Yaakov Kol Yisrael, Leilech Bo, Lechazik Bitch, V'Yilcham Mechamas Adesham V'Natzeach, right? All the things that the Rambam says that Mashiach is going to do, Mashiach does them actually. And Mashiach is an inyan pnimi. It's a spiritual thing, yeah? You start to mess with Mashiach, you get into trouble. We live in a time that all that's made for us to do is to be makabel b'nei Mashiach's kingdom. In the olden days, tzaddikim were afraid to talk about Mashiach because the boogeyman would come out of the closet. I mean, I'm sorry for being so facetious, but the forces that are against Mashiach are unbelievable. Now there are no forces against Mashiach. There's simply a need for us to be makabel b'nei Mashiach's kingdom, to acknowledge that Mashiach has to come and that Mashiach is here, and that we have to accept Mashiach Tzidkenu, and we have to want Mashiach Tzidkenu. Demand him and want Mashiach Tzidkenu. So this is it's a mifza, you know? It's a mifza. It's a campaign. It's not a prayer, it's a campaign. It's a campaign that begins with us. That we have to want Mashiach, we have to get other people to want Mashiach, we have to teach the world that they have to want Mashiach and explain to them what they want and why they want it. And that Mashiach's coming is conditional on our desiring him, on our wanting him. And let me say this in closing. What is easier? What is easier? Is it easier to look at the cup as half full or to look at the cup as half empty? Yeah, I have 79 human beings that are here. I have exactly 2 faces, 3 faces. Besides for those 3 faces and myself 4 faces, I have, I guess that's, now we're up to 81. That's 77, now I have 6. 77 gray rectangles with a name and a caricature of a speaker that's a line through it, which says that you cannot interrupt. Okay, thank you for showing your face. Yeah, I'm talking to a bunch of people, and I cannot see you. Yeah, but I'm asking a question. Which is easier? Is it easier to look at your cup, my cup, as half full or half empty? And I'm going to give you a very interesting answer, and I'm saying this as a provocation, as a medium to make a point, obviously. It's much easier to look at the cup as half empty. It's so easy to be pessimistic and negative. It's so easy to live life with a tendency, with a sentiment that it's bad. Woe to me. Woe to me. And if, God forbid, our lives are not woeful enough, you look to your neighbor and say, oh, woe to me. My neighbor has this. right? We are here. We are here. We're having this Fabrengen because of a terrible, terrible tragedy, an inexplicable tragedy. Someone put around the video now, I just saw the other day, of what the Rebbe spoke after the Shiva ended for Pesha Leila Pine, Allah Shalom. And you listen to the Rebbe's words. Yeah, there's pain in the world. And I ask a simple question. Which is easier, to look at the cup as half full or look at the cup as half empty? And my answer is that it's much easier to look at the cup as half empty. Have reasons to complain. But it's so depressing. It's so useless. It's so stupid. It's such a bad choice. The cup is half full. Thank God. The cup is half empty, unfortunately. The choice is ours. To focus on the cup as half full and to be disappointed, frustrated, negative, or as they say in the culture, part of the problem, or to focus on the fact that the cup is half full and to be positive and optimistic and looking forward, and as they say in the culture, being part of the solution. Or to say it in different words. By the way, in Tanya, chapter 31, the Alter Rebbe very succinctly articulates this. I'm gonna tell you words in Hebrew, and I'll translate them into English. They're some of my favorite words. I used to teach these krakim all the time, and I made my students memorize them. This is the quote: Teikar nafshay be'enav, l'smoyach b'simchasa, yeser mivguf hanivza, shalei la'arvei v'laval bil simchas hanefesh b'yitzavin haguf. And in English, this means a person's soul should be so valuable, my neshama should be so important to me that I should celebrate its joy rather than the shame and the disappointment that's connected to my body. And then the Alter Rebbe says, do not confuse, do not entangle the joy of the soul with the sadness of the body. This is a quote. Don't allow the joy of the neshama to become entangled and burdened by the heaviness of the body. This phrase is the same thing as saying, the cup is half full, the cup is half empty. It's a choice. And to choose the cup is half full is harder. It's harder. But it's the only option. Because looking at the cup as half empty is like knocking the cup over. It's depressing. It's not helpful. It's not helpful, it's not constructive, it's not good. And therefore it's not just. It's not correct. It's not correct. It's not correct even when it seems correct. Every human being always can look at his life, like the Rambam writes, 50-50. Look at the world, look at our place vis-a-vis Moshiach, and all the different challenges that we face as a person and as a community, as a family and as a community and as a neighborhood and as a city and so on and so forth. And we have as many reasons to look at our life and say it's great and to use that energy as a motivation for Avodas Hashem. And we have just as many reasons to be sad and depressed. It's much easier. The easiest thing in the world is to sit on a couch and eat chips. The easiest thing in the world is to say, woe is us. I'm waiting for a Moshiach to come and save me. But it's foolish, and it's depressing, and it's wrong, and it's lazy. It's lazy. The half a cup that's empty, to focus on that is to be lazy, because it's really accepting that the cup is empty, not to try and fill it. Focus on the half a cup that's full. Takes energy and effort. And you know what? The person next to you thinks you're weird. When you demonstrate, when I demonstrate, when we demonstrate, B'tachan in Hashem, when we ooze, when we radiate an energy of Emunah and B'tachan, Mashiach's coming, yeah? And we live a life of simcha, the people around us look at us as strange. Why? Because Elam Haza is depressed. Life's tough, life's hard, especially now. What? Those are the choices. It's black and white. According to the Tanya, it's black and white. There's no gray. In psychology, there's a lot of gray, but in Chassidus, it's black and white. Energy or no energy. Half full, half empty. Positive, negative. And the whole Chassidus teaches us, you have to be a part of the solution. You have to be up. You have to be sameach. Not because life is good, but because it's going to be worse if I don't look at it this way. And a person has to take it. Nafshe be'einu l'smech b'simchasa yefer because yefer m'guf hanivza. So the arve v'lavav v'simchas hanefik b'simchas. A yid has to live his life on a madrega. He focuses on the neshama. He focuses on Moshiach. And that gives him emunah, that gives him bitachon, that gives him optimism, that gives him joy. And then he lives. Then he lives. If he doesn't do that, and he has good excuses, very good excuses, incredibly good excuses, so he's right, but he's miserable. He's right. He's right. I know a story, and forgive me for finishing with this, but I'm going to finish with this, about a person who is no longer with us, who had a very hard life. They suffered a lot. And one of the many ill experiences in their life was that they lost a child, a married child who left many orphans behind. This person wrote the Rebbe a letter of protest, essentially. How could this happen? I don't know the details of the letter because it was written in a language that I don't understand, but they wrote the Rebbe a long letter lamenting life. And the Rebbe answered this person, whatever energy you have has to be dedicated to helping, Baila Shiachya, her husband, and her children. When this person received this answer from the Rebbe, it could have come across as very severe. The person writes to the Rebbe, complains to the Rebbe about status. What's the Rebbe's answer? There's no time to complain. There's work to be done. Go do it. Now, what the Rebbe told her is true. What the Rebbe told her is very painful. What's important to understand that what the Rebbe told her is not only for the sake of her son-in-law and her children, it's for her sake. When a person goes through an assignment, and this is an assignment, we're collected here because what the Rebbe calls a mitzvah shendet, something that the Eibush did which you cannot make sense out of. And the avodah, the task of what? Of being involved in the up part of this, rather than the down part of this, in the cup is half full part of this, rather than the cup is half empty, which is quite a challenge. It's quite a challenge. Is not only for the sake of the people we may be trying to help, but it's for our own sake. And in a real way, that's what Moshiach stands for. Moshiach stands for the world is full of light. The Rebbe used to say all the time that this world is Hashem's garden. And then in 5 minutes, he would call it a jungle, It's God's garden. It just doesn't seem that way yet. And this is a message of the Rebbe. This is a message of Chassidus. It's a message of Torah. It's a message of Yiddishkeit.